Hello. Today we're going to discuss about why I regret moving into a nursing home. 6 hard truths you must know. If you're new here, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel before we go into detail. It really helps us keep posting more useful content that matters, especially for those navigating the complex realities of aging that I in this video. You're going to learn about the emotional, physical, and psychological challenges many elderly people face after moving into a nursing home. We'll uncover 6 hard truths that most people don't talk about. Things that are often hidden beneath the surface of glossy brochures and sales pitches. Whether you're thinking about moving into a nursing facility, helping a parent decide, or just curious about what life inside really feels like, this video will open your eyes in a very real way. Let's get into it. The day I moved into a nursing home, I thought I was stepping into a safe and peaceful future. I believed I was choosing convenience, medical care, and community. But what I didn't see coming was the silent loneliness that would start wrapping itself around me within days. The first truth I realized was that no matter how nice the facility looks from the outside, nothing can replace the comfort and familiarity of your own home. You can have a room with furniture, but it never feels like your own. Everything is standard, every wall is painted the same, and the sense of ownership fades with each passing day. I remember waking up at night, not even recognizing where I was for a moment, and that's when it hit me. This wasn't home. It never would be. The second hard truth is about your freedom. When you're living independently, you decide when to eat, when to bathe, when to sleep. In a nursing home, your life runs on their schedule. Meals are at set times, activities are pre-planned, and even your medicine comes on a timetable that someone else controls. There's a quiet loss of autonomy that begins to eat away at your spirit. You stop choosing your day. You begin to feel like a passive observer of your own life. Some people adjust to it. I didn't. I found myself frustrated, waiting for things to happen, waiting for others to allow me to do the most basic tasks. That sense of waiting all the time, it does something to your soul. You begin to feel less like a person and more like a task on someone's list. Then comes the third truth, which no one tells you during the admission process: the isolation. You think you're going to be around people all the time, making friends, having conversations, joining group activities. And while that may happen in some cases, the reality is often very different. Many residents are battling memory loss, chronic illnesses, or deep depression. Conversations are rare, and when they happen, they're fleeting. I sat through entire afternoons watching television with others, without a single word spoken. It's not just physical isolation, it's emotional. You feel invisible. Even with nurses walking around, you're often just another room number to them. Unless you're lucky enough to have daily visits from family, which not many do, you begin to fade into a background no one looks at for long. The fourth hard truth I learned was that care is not always as personal or kind as you expect. This is not to say caregivers don't try. Many do. But they are overworked, underpaid, and often stretched so thin that real compassion becomes a luxury. You wait for help. You ring the call bell and wait. Sometimes for 5 minutes, sometimes 30. And when someone finally comes, they're often in a rush, moving on to the next patient. I once sat for nearly an hour after a fall, before anyone even noticed. I stopped feeling like a human and more like a task. You feel hesitant to ask for help because you know they're busy, and yet you need help constantly. That helplessness, it chips away at your dignity. And when you're not treated with patience, that sense of dignity becomes a distant memory. Then came the fifth truth: how quickly your health can decline once you're inside. You think you're in a medical environment, that you'll get stronger, safer. But the lack of movement, the sedentary routines, the institutional meals, they wear your body down. I gained weight I didn't need, lost muscle I couldn't afford to lose, and my energy levels dropped dramatically. Even worse, my mental clarity started fading. When you're not engaged, not stimulated, not challenged, or surrounded by life, you start slipping. And when the only excitement in your day is bingo or a meal, you forget what real living feels like. I noticed how sharp my mind used to be when I lived on my own, reading the paper, cooking, taking walks, meeting neighbors. In the home, those sparks faded. The sixth, and perhaps the hardest truth, is the guilt. The guilt of feeling like a burden to your family. The guilt of thinking maybe you should have tried harder to stay independent. The guilt that comes when your children say they're doing what's best for you, but deep down, you know they just don't have the time. I don't blame them, but it hurts. You sit in your room wondering if they're going to visit this weekend, if they'll remember your birthday, if they miss you at all. And when they don't show up, a silence falls over you that words can't describe. You start replaying every moment of your life, wondering where it all went. And regret becomes a daily visitor, one who never knocks, but always enters. I'm not saying nursing homes are evil or that no one should go. For some, it is the safest option. But I wish I had known these truths before I moved in. I wish someone had told me that home is not just a place, it's a feeling. It's the freedom to wake up when you want, to drink your tea the way you like it, to feel the wind through your own curtains. If you or someone you love is considering a nursing home, don't make the decision in haste. Ask real questions. Talk to residents. Visit at odd hours. Look beyond the clean floors and framed photos on the wall. Ask how often the staff turns over. Ask what happens at night. Ask what happens when someone's crying in their room. Because those are the things that matter. And most importantly, ask yourself if there's a way to stay home. Could you downsize? Could you get in-home care? Could you move in with family? Because once you cross that threshold, it's hard to go back. It's not just a move, it's a surrender. A surrender of choice, of pace, of peace that I hope this video gave you clarity, perspective, and perhaps the courage to rethink what aging with dignity looks like. Thank you for watching. If this content spoke to you, please like and subscribe, and share it with someone who may be facing this decision right now. You might just change their life. Another aspect that I never expected when moving into a nursing home was how quickly my identity began to blur. In a place where everyone is wearing similar clothes, following the same routines, eating the same meals, and often dealing with the same physical challenges, individuality starts to vanish. You become known more by your room number or your chart than by your name, passions, or past. No one really asked me what I used to love, what kind of books I read, what music I liked, or even what I did for a living. And I slowly stopped talking about those things myself. The sense of purpose and pride that came from being someone, from having stories and wisdom to share, started to feel irrelevant. In that setting, you're not the parent, the teacher, the artist, or the business owner anymore. You're just another elderly person needing care. That perhaps was one of the most heartbreaking realizations of all. What also began to bother me deeply was the emotional atmosphere that hung over the halls. You don't see it in the brochures, but sadness lingers in the air like a quiet fog. Yes, there are moments of laughter and glimpses of joy, but for many, there's an unspoken grief. Grief over losing independence, over not being at home, over the life that used to be. I remember walking past rooms with closed doors, knowing that behind them were people who once had vibrant lives, now sitting in silence, waiting for time to pass. And it wasn't just their grief, I started to carry my own. I grieved the small things I never thought I'd miss, like watering my plants, choosing my own groceries, or seeing familiar faces in the neighborhood. Those things seem so ordinary when you have them. But when they're gone, they leave a silence that no scheduled activity can fill. I also learned that the promise of safety can come at the cost of real living. Sure, you're monitored, your medications are handled, your meals are served, but at what cost? The excitement of spontaneity is gone. You don't decide to take a walk whenever you want to cook something just because you crave it. Even holidays start to feel like routines rather than celebrations. And no matter how decorated the common areas are, they can't replace the feeling of a home lit by your favorite candles, the smell of your own cooking, or the memories tied to a particular piece of furniture. I started to feel like I was existing, but not really living. And as time went on, I noticed another difficult truth. Relationships outside the home began to fade. It wasn't intentional, but when you're not part of the daily rhythm of your family's lives, you start to get left behind. Phone calls become less frequent. Visits are shorter. They come during holidays and birthdays, but the in-between moments, the everyday ones that make relationships strong, begin to disappear. I miss seeing my grandchildren after school, having surprise visits from neighbors, or just chatting with a friend who dropped by. In a nursing home, those spontaneous moments don't happen. Social life becomes scheduled and, frankly, forced. It's hard to build real connections in an environment where everyone's struggling with their own set of losses. Another deeply personal realization was how easy it is to stop advocating for yourself once you're inside a structured system. At home, you fight for what you want, you make your own choices, you handle your finances, your diet, your routines. In a nursing home, things are handled for you. and that can seem convenient at first. But over time, you begin to lose that internal fire to stand up for your needs. You stop asking for better food or more options. You accept the noise, the cold coffee, the overcooked meals, the skipped activities. You start believing your preferences don't matter anymore. And that belief slowly erodes your self-worth. You become someone who no longer pushes back, who no longer asks, why not? There is also something else, watching people around you fade one by one. In nursing homes, death is not rare. It is part of the environment, a silent companion that never leaves. I saw people who I had just spoken with pass away quietly. Their rooms cleaned out quickly. Their absence felt deeply, but also quietly acknowledged because everyone knows that sooner or later, it could be their room next. That looming presence of mortality creates an emotional fatigue that's hard to explain. It's not fear, it's a numb acceptance. And it changes you. It makes you reflect on your own life more intensely than you ever have before. What makes all of this harder is the pressure to pretend everything is okay. When family visits, you want to seem strong, grateful, adjusted. You don't want them to feel guilty. So you smile and say you're fine. You tell them the food is good, the staff is kind, the place is clean, and sometimes all of that is true. But beneath that surface, there's a loneliness and longing you can't always express. You don't want to be a burden. You don't want them to feel responsible for your unhappiness. So you wear a brave face, even when all you want is to go home. As I reflect on it now, I realize that my biggest regret wasn't just moving into a nursing home. It was not having the deeper conversations with my family before I made that move. We didn't talk enough about alternatives. We didn't explore home modifications or consider hiring help. We assumed this was the only way, but it wasn't. I know that now. There are more options today than ever before for aging at home safely. From community care networks to part-time caregivers to meal delivery services and remote health monitoring, staying home is more possible than most people realize. I wish I had pushed harder for that. I wish I had asked more questions, visited more facilities, talked to more residents. Because what I thought I was signing up for, a life of peace and care, turned into a daily battle for dignity and emotional survival. To anyone watching this, especially if you're helping a loved one make this decision, please understand that moving into a nursing home is not just about physical needs. It's about emotional, psychological, and social well-being too. Ask the hard questions. Be honest with yourself and your family. Don't let fear or convenience drive the decision. Because once you make that move, you start a journey that is very difficult to reverse. And if you're already in a nursing home and feeling some of what I've described, please know you're not alone. Your feelings are valid. Your story matters. And it's never too late to speak up, to ask for changes, to find moments of joy even in small things. And most of all, remember who you are. Your identity is not defined by where you live, but by the life you've lived and the wisdom you carry. Let that be your strength. One of the things that no one prepares you for is how quickly time begins to stretch in strange ways when you're inside a nursing home. The hours don't feel the same. Days blend into one another. There's no real distinction between a Monday and a Saturday unless someone tells you. Without the normal routines and responsibilities you used to have, grocery shopping, gardening, visiting friends, going to the bank, your days lose the structure that once gave them meaning. I used to mark my calendar with excitement, knowing when a grandchild's recital was coming up or when my favorite neighbor was stopping by for tea. But in the nursing home, you look at the calendar and realize that most of the days are just blank. And when time becomes something you're trying to fill instead of something you're excited about, it starts to feel heavy. That heaviness affects everything. It changes the way you look at your health. You might begin to neglect small things that once mattered to you, like doing your hair or wearing your favorite sweater. The environment isn't always conducive to pride and personal appearance. After all, if no one is really seeing you in a way that matters, why bother? That kind of thinking is dangerous because it slowly chips away at your self-esteem. You begin to see yourself the way the system sees you. Just another person to care for, not someone who deserves to be celebrated. And when you stop caring about yourself, depression can creep in quietly. It starts with disinterest and ends with silence. Another subtle change is how your role within the family evolves. Before moving in, you may have been a central figure, someone who was consulted, someone who gave advice, shared stories, helped raise grandchildren. After the move, your role shrinks. You become someone they visit, someone they call, someone they think of, but from a distance. They start making decisions without you. Not maliciously, but because you're not present in the everyday. And slowly, your influence begins to fade. You become a memory instead of a participant. And that loss of influence can be very painful, especially if you were once the pillar of your family. The truth is, no one really wants to talk about these things. Society tends to romanticize nursing homes as places where elderly people are looked after, kept safe, and entertained. And while some homes try to offer this, the emotional reality for many residents is far more complex. It's not just about bingo nights and soup. It's about navigating an entirely new existence in a setting that can often feel sterile and impersonal. I once spoke with a fellow resident who had been a world traveler in his youth. He had a wall filled with photographs from every corner of the globe, yet now he spent most of his days staring out a single window, watching the same parking lot. That contrast haunted me. How does someone who once lived with so much color settle into a world so gray? The answer is, they don't really settle. They adapt. But there's a difference between adapting and thriving. Most of us adapt because we have no other choice. We follow the rules, attend the activities, try to smile when someone takes a photo for the newsletter. But thriving? That takes more than adaptation. That takes purpose, community, stimulation, respect. And unfortunately, those things are not guaranteed in every nursing home. You have to fight for them. And sometimes, even when you fight, the system is just too rigid to bend. I also realized that growing old is not just a physical experience. It's deeply emotional. And nursing homes, while equipped to handle medical needs, are not always equipped to handle emotional ones. There's very little space to talk about grief, about regrets, about fear. There are no quiet corners for honest reflection, no regular check-ins for mental well-being unless a crisis occurs. But aging brings with it a wave of emotions that deserve just as much attention as physical health. I often wish someone would sit down and simply ask, "How are you really feeling today?" Not just to check a box, but because they genuinely wanted to know. That kind of care is rare and deeply missed when it's absent. Then there's the financial side. Nursing homes are not cheap, and over time, the cost begins to feel like a weight. You start wondering if this is really where your money should be going. If it could have been used to modify your own home, to hire part-time help, to set up better systems that let you stay in your neighborhood. And that thought can turn into regret, especially if you made the decision quickly or under pressure. I sometimes think about all the things I could have done differently had I paused, asked more questions, or consulted someone with firsthand experience. That I share all this not to spread fear, but to offer perspective. Because once you move into a nursing home, it's very hard to fully go back. Not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. You get used to a slower rhythm, to someone else making your choices, to having less of a voice. And unlearning that, should you ever return to independent living, can be a massive challenge. So, if you're at the crossroads of this decision, or helping someone who is, please think about what really matters to you. Is it safety? Is it freedom? Is it community? Try to find a solution that aligns with those values before taking a step that's difficult to reverse. In the end, what I regret most isn't the move itself. It's not knowing these truths earlier. It's not having enough honest conversations, not exploring more creative alternatives, not trusting my instincts when they told me something felt off. I believed I was doing the right thing, but I was doing what I thought was expected, not what I truly wanted. And that distinction makes all the difference. Let this be a wake-up call for anyone watching. Don't wait until you're in a sterile room looking at faded wallpaper to realize what you gave up. Advocate for yourself. Speak your truth. And if you're a family member making decisions for someone you love, please listen more than you speak. Their wishes may not always be easy to fulfill, but they deserve to be heard. This conversation matters because it's happening in silence all over the world. Seniors sitting in facilities wondering if they made the right choice. Children struggling with guilt over placing their parents in homes. Healthcare workers trying their best in an overstretched system. We can't change everything overnight, but we can start by telling the truth, by sharing stories that aren't sugar-coated, and by giving people the tools and insight they need to make informed decisions, not just based on what's easiest, but on what will truly nurture their well-being.